Okay, so in this session I will continue to do some floor tiles, but I have increased the complexity just a bit for you so you can see how we should think when we have something like this in front of us. So what we can see now is 4 different tiles, but they are the same tile, it's just that they are rotated 90 degrees. So you start with this one, then it's rotated, and then it's rotated, and then it's rotated. The shape is rather simple because it's just diagonals, and the thing here is more that it's both rotated. It's also so that the colors are changing in ways where it can be a bit hard. So if you can see here, you have dark on the right side in the top, but you have dark in the left side in the bottom here, for instance. You have a line that is diagonal, but it's cut here to be a bit darker compared to the line that goes here. And we have 2 small lines here, and we have 1 big line here, and as you can see, that line should be a little bit to the right here, or and a little bit down here, and have a middle here. So it's a lot of diagonal lines. We have to fix the rotation, we have to fix the color and everything. But if we just take it step by step, we can see what we can do. And the first thing I should do, I think, is just to do this quadrant here, because that is the easiest thing to start with. So, and I think we take the rotation last. So start Shift A, input and the texture coordinate, and to make this quadrant here, I will use the technique that we use to make tiles, which means that I try to do this value to 0 and this value to 0, and the same on this edge and this edge, and have the highest number in the middle. And to achieve that, we do as we normally do first with subtract and a multiply. So Shift A, converter, vector math, and then I put in a subtract, and we put this to 0.5 like this, and then multiply with 2 as usual. I think you have learned this by now, and I'm sure you have done a node group for it, so you don't have to do it every time. If not, you are forced to do it as I do it here. And then we have that, and now I think we should use an absolute, because we would like to have every side the same here. So we add an absolute, Shift D, copy, and we use an absolute here. And if I now separate X, Y, Z, so Shift A, converter, separate X, Y, Z, and take a look at the X here, you can see now, if I go to render view, that you have a line in the middle here. And what I said was that I would have the lines that are of the lowest value on the edges of this quadrant here, not in the center. And if you remember, that is by subtracting 1 with this value here. So I guess take Shift D to copy and change this into subtract, move this to the low one, change those 2 to 1, and now you can see that the edges are the lowest value and the middle part is the highest value. So for us right now is more or less just to put in minimum here. So Shift A, converter, math, change this into a minimum, and then we get this. And then we can just sort out by greater than to get just the middle part white. So I can copy this one, Shift D, and I can then change this to greater than. And the value here we're not sure about yet, so we just keep it at 0.5. But now we have our quadrant here, so we can just, you can take away this one from the start anyway. And I think we can take this part here and press Ctrl J to make a frame out of it, press N to get this, and then just write like inner quadrant or something like that. And then we know that, okay, this part is for the inner quadrant. So the next part we can do is this diagonal line here. So let's see how we can do that one. I think we can just separate x, y, z first. So Shift A, convert separate x, y, z after the multiply here. And we can use this material output here. So if I see if I can take this without no, I could not use Control X. I just add it again. Shift A, output, material output. So now I don't have it in the inner quadrant here. So now we have it out and I can see what we have. So if I now add these two together, so converter, math, add those, I get the diagonal line. However, we have now black here and white here. So what we can do is to add an absolute here, which then will, if I can just find my absolute here, should be here somewhere. Then we get this line here. And then I think that, okay, it should be the reverse, and it should also be so that this is the white thing and not the dark thing, since we are building a mask out of it. So to make it subtract, or to make it other way, you can just use subtract here instead of add. So you can see add, subtract. So now we have it in the right direction. And we can then, in the same way as we did up here, use greater than or less than. Okay, and in this case, I think I will use a less than, because I would like to keep the lower value. So copy this one, Shift D, change it into less than, and now I can see I get this. I think we could take it down a bit, so it's something like this, 0.4. And now I would like to have that part here. So how should we do that? As you remember, we could use add to get in the other direction here. And I think we can do that to find these. So let's try that. So subtract, we take that, just Shift D, copy, and we move this. But instead I use this to add, and you will use this absolute here as well. And if I now take this one, and I can then use something like this, so Shift D as well. And I change this to greater than, then I can increase the value, and now you can see what happens. I get this part here in the end here. So now I have that part, which is the complete line here, and I have this part here, that is the complete line here. So I can, if I want to, add those together. So I get something like this. And now you can see that if I add those two together, this will get brighter than this line here. And we can do this, if we want the correct color, we can do this in different ways here. So we can correct it here, or we can use a color mask later on. But if we wanted to correct it here, we can use a subtract instead. But then you can see that it's getting cut here, because if I use a subtract, then I use 1, and then I subtract that with 1 when I have these two exactly as the same value. So to make it not exactly the same value, I can then add a multiply after this. So if I put Shift D to copy, and I multiply this with a value that is a little bit lower. So if I take it to 0.9 or something like that, then I get this value. And I can of course do the same with this part here, but if I do that, then I also need to increase this, because now they are working together. So it's a little bit harder to do it like this, but it's doable. As you can see, I can take it to 0.2 and then I take this to 0.1 or something like that. So then we have this part here. The only thing now is that everything outside here is dark. It's black. So perhaps not the best thing, but I think we just let it be for the moment right now, because we have managed to do that. We can change the background if we need that later on. So we can call this, don't use the material output, just press Ctrl J. So we have this part without the material output, and then we can add some name to that. So then we know that this is the big diagonal line like this. So now we have two parts here. We have the line and we have the inner quadrant. So the next thing we need to do is this diagonal thing on the side here. So let's do that. And we can use these as well still, but now we take out and then we use a separate XYZ. So we have that in. Go a bit closer here. It's not interested to see that one, so we can disconnect it. So now we only work with that part here, so we don't have to see the rest. So we can make node groups out of all that later on if you want it to be more clean instead of having all these nodes in the same scene here. But for now we can separate this and put that in here. So if I now use something here, then I before used an add or subtract to make this line diagonal. We can also try something else that I think we tried it up from the first thing we did here, but I can do it again. So we add converter and then math, and I will change this into a compare. And I will put the first one and the second one in and put it in here. So then we get this line here as we would like it to be, but it's now in the wrong order here. So what we can do is then just change the order. So we can copy this one, Shift D. And if I now subtract with 1 up here, that didn't help. Let's see, what should we do? Because I think that it would work really well. Let me think a little bit. If I add Shift A, converter and a math, put that in here, and now it looks good. So yes, this will work, I think. So we can keep it like that. Add to get the diagonal line. When that line have this value and this width, it will then be true, so that it will be 1. So it goes from this diagonal line, and as you know, when we use a diagonal line here, we get, I can just connect it directly here, you can see it. I get a positive value here, so everything here is 0, then it increases a bit here, so it's 0.1, 0.2, and so on. So if it's 0.2, then we get the width here, and then we get this line here, and then I need the epsilon to get some width here where everything between 0 and 0.2 then will be white, and that is why the compare worked. So we can use this one, and then I think we do another one to make two, so we have a possibility to change the colors of those. So we just do this again, but instead of using a value of 2, we go in the negative direction. So we use -2. So now we have this part here, and now we can just put these two together in some way. So convert to some math here, and we can put these two together, and then we have them together. But now we have this thing with the color here that we need to handle in some good way. And here we have some trouble, because half of the way it should be dark, and then it should be brighter and brighter, and then it should be dark. So somewhere here it should then turn so we don't use the same color. So first of all, we need to create colors here, and that we can do in the same way we did with the values here. So we can add and multiply here that then increase or decrease the whiteness. So I will just copy this one, press Shift D, change it into multiply, and as you can see now I get this color here, and I can go really low, so perhaps 0.05 or something to get this, and I could even go lower, so you can put it to 0.02 or something. Now we have a really low number here, and we can do the same with the other one. So we can take that up to, I don't know, something rather high, perhaps not that high, so I don't know, 0.7 or even lower, so 0.6 perhaps, 0.4. Yeah, let's go for that one. Just in the start area, we can change that as much as we want to later on. So then we get these two colors. How should we then change this so we get different colors depending on where it is? Well, this is changing in the middle, as I said, and what we can do then is that we can use the value from, let's say, from the X here. So if I look at the X right now, you can see that it's cut in the middle here, which is perfect here, because then we can use that to do less than or greater than, and by that get a type of multiply here. So what we can say that both these, this compare here and this compare here, will use both these values. So to be able to change these, we can then use this one, copy it, put it up here, and connect it with the compare here. So now we're using 0.2 and 0.4 for both for the same compare, and we have to do the same in the bottom here. So I can copy this one, Shift D, put it down here, so we have it in here as well. So now we have these two, and to be able to change them easier later on, we can add an input here. So Shift A, input value, put the first one to 0.02, because that is what we used, and put that up here, and put that to this one. And we do the same with the other one, so we have that in as well. So copy this one, Shift D, change it to 0.4, like this, and we put that in here, and we put that in here. Okay, so let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see what happens now. So we have the normal subtract, multiply, do the separate. I do this X and Y, which means that I get a diagonal line. I do the compare, and I do the compare. So we have this on the top, and we have this on the bottom, since this is a negative value and this is a positive value. We add colors. So we have a color here, and we have a color here. We have the same color here and the same color here. And now we'll use together with, to get these out, so to say, to this one, we can just disconnect that from the start here. We need to control it with the X value here. So we can add a less than. So Shift A, converter, math. Use this and put this to less than, like that. And if I now put it to, can put it to, okay, let's do it like this first so we can see. So less than 0. We get that in the center here, so you can see, you can drag it up a little bit. That means that this part is positive. So if I now multiply the value that I get from this, I will get white here and I will get black here. So let's try this. So I add a multiply, so Shift D to copy this one, and I can then take, I can keep it like this. So now you can see that I get this gray part here, and then it cuts, which is perfect for us, because then we can use this color here for the lower part. So how should we do that? We must reverse this. So instead of getting white here, black here, we must get black here and white here. And that we can do with the subtract. So Shift A, converter, math. And if I now subtract that with 1, you can see now that I get black here and white here, exactly as I would like to do. So then I can use, so I have two compare values of these two now. So this is white to black and this is black to white. So the second one I can use to the one down here. So Shift D and put this. Now I can see that it's, or you can see that it's a lot of nodes here, and it really is vital that you know what you're doing right now and that you can see that everything connects here. But now we have connected the first part to the first less than here, and the second part to the subtract here. We could do it a little bit easier because we can do like this. We can copy this one and we can use greater than here instead. So if I use greater than on my X, like that, then we don't need a subtract, and we have that on the same level. So it's perhaps a little bit easier to see. So if I use the less than, it looks like this, white and black, and if I use the greater than, it looks like this, black and white. So that is the same as doing the subtract, but now we don't have to build something here, it's easier to see. So, okay, so now we have those two together, and all we have to do now is that we take the color for the first one and multiply, we can take the color for the second one and multiply, and we use the absolute, or sorry, the maximum here of the values that we get out. And when we connect, you can see now that this gets dark on this side and it gets white on this side, or light gray, which is exactly what we want to change in the middle. Perfect. So that is what we want. Now it's just to repeat the pattern here, but in reverse, because we would like a light gray here and dark gray here. So we can just copy everything here, Shift D, put it down here, connect this one and connect this one, and now the only thing is that you have to take the top one to the lower one up here, and you have to take the lower one to the top down here. So, and now we can add the maximum for that as well, and if I now add these two together, you get it like this. So dark, dark, bright, 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 dark, dark. Perfect. So now all this here is then the smaller diagonal lines. So we can add some frame for this. Control J, just so we know it. So, 2 colored diagonal lines, something like that. Then we can see that these are 2 colored diagonal lines. And now, more or less, everything we have to do now is just try to put everything together in a good way here. So what do we have? We have to look a little bit. I think we start with the quadrant, look at that one that we had in top, see how it looks. And it's white in the middle. Perhaps it should be the reverse, because we would like to filter away that part. So if we change this to less than instead, so we have it like this, then it will keep this and it will take away that part. And that will be good if we compare that with, I know it's small, so I have to go back and forth. If I compare it with this one, because then I can just cut the part away here that is black. So if I now use, let's see here, if I take Shift A, converter math, and I take the top one here, put those two together, and I now keep the minimum. We get it so it's cut here, and now all we have to do is just drag that diagonal line that we had here. So let's see where we have that one. We have it here, and it looks like, see if we can find it. It looks like this. Okay? Good. So then if we just use this one, and we have this one, then let's see if we just take Shift A, converter math, put that together with this here, and just add them together, then we have all we need here. The only thing we have to do now is to reverse the background. So we can do that in a rather easy way. So we can, I think we just add a color mix here. So Shift A, color and a mix color. And if the factor is black, we make it white. So we have that in. We can do it like that. Now we have grayscale. We don't want grayscale. We want white or black here. So let us make this by adding a less than. So converter math, and if I use less than 0 here, or greater than 0, like this, then we have a mask here. So then it's better to use together with the mix here. So if I put that in, then I know that if it's 0, then it should be white. If it's white, if it's 0, then it's dark here in the mask here. That means that we use the first value, this one. So then we have that as a background, and you can see it if I go in here. So now you can see my background is changing here. And that background I would like to be white. So everything should be 1 here. And the other one, I would just want to use the colors that we have. So I just put that in here. And as you can see, it works. Now I can see that these are a little bit longer than what we have here. So, or it could be that they are a little too thin. So we can just change that. And that we do with the 2 color diagonal lines. That is why we put some title here, so we easily can see it. And it's a compare value, so if I now change this, then I have to change that as well. And we can put it to, I don't know, 0.25 or something like that, and 0.25 here. And then you can see it gets bigger here, and then we can do the same here, so it's like something like that. So now we have it in, and it should be a little bit short here. So then it's the square. So we go to the inner quadrant and we change this. So something like that will be okay, I think. And perhaps that line is a little bit bigger. So we change the line here as well. So I don't know, something could be too big, 45, something like that. And then this should be, see if my math is okay. It's hard to see here. It looks rather okay. That is too big, that is too small. Yes, that looks okay. So then we have that, and now I think that the scale on everything is okay. So now we have almost fixed everything. What we can do now is the tile also needs some mortar on the side, so we can fix that while we are working here, and we can do that because we now know how to do it rather quickly here. So Shift A, input a texture coordinate. And then we use those vector math, the subtract with 0.5 and the multiply with 2. So 2 here and 2 here. We use an absolute, so Shift D, absolute. We use subtract, so Shift D, subtract, because now we would like it to be a tile, and I was going through that earlier in this session, so you should know how it works now. And then we do a separate, so Shift A, convert separate XYZ. We take a smooth minimum to these two, so converter, math, smooth minimum. Put that in here, take a really low distance, 0.02 or something, and then we do a map range converter, and we take map range, should be here, so we then can just use the lower values here, something like that, and now I need to see how it looks, so let me look here. Yes, we have a good tile here. So now we can just use that together with this here. So we can just Shift A, converter, math, take it together and do some multiply here. And now you can see we have this tile here. Could be that we can do it even smaller, so 0.5 or something. I think that will work good. So now we have our tile in, we have everything here, so we can just put this to Control J, call this tile, shape. So now we have that. It's rather impressive tree that we have built so far. And only thing we need now is to get the rotation and 4 different tiles here, so we can add that. So to make tiles, we need a scale. So Shift A, converter, vector math, put it in, change it to scale. So change it to 2, and now we have these, but we need a fraction, of course. So Shift D to copy, and we add a fraction here. So now we have this. Now we need to rotate, so we add rotate, Shift A, go to vector, and there you have vector rotate. So put that in, and we need to change this here, but we need to change it in the center. So we change this to 0.5 and 0.5 for the vector rotate. So now when we're rotating, it will rotate in the center. That is really good. Now we need some type of converter here, and we can do that by adding a floor here, like that. And we need to increase it, so we can separate X and Y, Z, and then just add those together. So Shift A, converter, and then we add a separate X, Y, Z. We add them together, can move this just a bit, because then everything will increase. So we get it in a good way here, and if I now just put it in here, you can see it rotates, but it will not rotate perfectly because we need to change this into radians, and that we do by just adding half of pi together with that. So Shift A, and then we change this to use this sign here first, then write pi divided by 2. So we have that in. And now let's see, we have done something that is not perfect here. Could be that we should multiply. Yes, because we 1 or 0 multiplied, then we have 0 degrees, then 1 multiplied with this, then we have 90 degrees. This is radians, not degrees, so then it works here. But now you can see it like inverted in some way, so we need to fix it. We also can see that the tile here is growing, so we need to fix that as well. I can fix the tile first, so we just drag it all the way back here. So we have everything here that we need, because we need to put in, take away this one, and we put in this one. Now we get the tiles in a good way, because we need a scale and fraction, so the tile will follow along in a good way. So then I can move this just a bit. So now we have that in, and then we have to fix this as well, and we have to turn them a bit. So I think we can just add one into this. So Shift D, and if I just add here, put this to 1 here. Perfect. Now we have it in. So now we rotate with 90 degrees here. We get everything in, and we just do a double check so everything is as it should be here. So yes, we have dark here, we have bright here, and the dark is here. Then it goes to the next tile, the dark is here, and the dark is here. Perfect. And then the next tile, then we get dark here, bright here. Perfect. Everything is, and the final one, dark, and then bright, dark, bright. So we succeeded, and this is how it looks, and it took us about, or me, but you followed along good, I hope, about almost 40 minutes. So it's a long session, but it's a little bit complicated when it comes to different colors, mixing everything together and so on. But it's not impossible, it's just to take one little step at a time to make it happen. So hopefully you learned something in this session as well, and I think that you might need to go through this session a few times before you get everything clear in your head, how I connect it and how I do all these minimum and add and greater than to mix everything together. But I think you will finally understand it after a few times. So I will just say that this session is over. We'll see you in the next one. So I just say bye for now.